To declare and work with objects in TypeScript, we can use interfaces. These interfaces work as blueprints for an object or a shape for an object, which allow us to create objects that conform to the rules that the interface specifies. This is what gives us the level of safety we're used to using in TypeScript, but for our objects. Let's have a look at an example to understand how we can use interfaces to create objects in TypeScript. Before we get started on how we would work with objects in TypeScript, let's have a look at a basic object in JavaScript. So we have three properties on our object called myBakeryItem. We've got a name, which is a string. We've got a number in stock property, which is a numerical value, which at the moment is just the number 1. And we have an array of strings, which has the property name ingredients. So let's take a look and see what that example would look like in TypeScript. Let's break it down. At the very top, we've got our interface, which we're calling BakeryItem. Our interface is like a blueprint. It defines the rules that our object must follow. So in this example, our property name must be a string, the property number in stock must be a number, and our property ingredients must be an array of strings. Let's move on to how we use this interface. Just below our interface, we've declared our object, which is called myBakeryItem, and we've specified the type to be the name of our interface, which is BakeryItem. This states that our object called myBakeryItem must follow the rules specified by our BakeryItem interface. Okay, let's build that back up from scratch so that we can go through it step by step. We'll start by declaring the interface. Our interface contains the property names and the types of each one of those properties. Now let's create an object which uses our BakeryItem interface. We can do that by declaring a new object and explicitly declaring the type to be a BakeryItem, which is the name of the interface. Finally, let's fill our object with the properties that our BakeryItem interface requires. That's our name, our number in stock, and our ingredients. Interfaces are integral to any TypeScript project, so it's really important that you get a good understanding as to how they work. And now, to strengthen that knowledge just a little bit further, let's take a look at another demonstration inside the editor. So in this lesson today, we're going to be talking about interfaces and how we can use those as a way of declaring objects in TypeScript. So let's get into it. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to create a new file in my src folder. I'm going to call it interfaces.ts. I'm going to hit Command and J, and I'm going to run TypeScript and watch the folder. And I'm going to disable ESLint at the top of the file, just so that we don't have lots and lots of errors popping up that we don't need to worry about at this point. So what exactly is an interface? Well, in the context of objects within TypeScript, an interface allows us to declare the keys inside of an object, and we can also declare the types of each one of those keys too. So let's declare our first interface. So we want our object to have two keys on it. We want the name of the fruit and we want the color of the fruit. So let's do that first. Let's keep it nice and simple. Let's type them both as strings for the time being, and maybe we can expand on that a little bit more later on in this lesson. Okay, so let's declare the name. So I'm just going to type in the key, which is name. I'm going to add a colon, and then I'm going to declare the type immediately afterwards, which is a string, and then I'm going to add a semicolon at the end of that line. Now we can do exactly the same thing with color. So I'm going to start a new line. I'm going to type color, and then again, in exactly the same way, I'm going to declare the type of the key, which is a string, and just add that semicolon at the end too. So I want to declare an object which has got some information on an apple, and we want to use our fruit information interface to do that. So let's go declare a new constant as apple information. I'm going to declare the type is fruit information. And just like I would with a normal object, I'm just going to add an equals and a curly bracket and hit save. Now, straight away, TypeScript throws an error when we hit save. So let's have a deeper dive into that. So it says type open and close curly bracket, which is an empty object, is missing the following properties from the type fruit information, name, and color. And if we look at our object, it's totally right. We don't have name or color inside of our object, and we explicitly said that they would be present in our interface when we defined it earlier on in this file. So let's add that in. So let's go name, and it's going to be apple, and let's add the color, and we're going to say that's green, and then I'm going to hit save. And now that our object is the correct shape that we defined in our interface, TypeScript no longer has any errors, and we are all good to go. So let's use that fruit information interface again for a few other fruits. So let's go orange information. And again, I'm going to define it as the fruit information type, and I'm going to call it an orange. And I'm going to, the color of an orange is very likely to be orange. And then let's do pear information too. So again, pear information, declare the type as fruit information, the name as pear, and the color green, I guess, because I don't think you can have any other colors of pears. And as you can see, one of the core powers of interfaces within TypeScript is its reusability. We've just used that same type 3 times in one file to declare the information of an apple, an orange, and a pear. Now let's put TypeScript to the test, and let's add a key that doesn't exist inside of our interface and see what happens. So let's add origin. Origin, say it's from, I don't know, the UK, something like that. And I'm going to hit save. And straight away, TypeScript throws an error. It does not like that. It says type name string, color string, origin string is not assignable to fruit information. Object literal may only contain known properties, and origin does not exist in fruit information. It's quite a verbose error, but in short, it's explicitly saying the origin key does not exist inside of our fruit information interface, and therefore this is not valid code. Let's remove that key now so that we can satisfy TypeScript and hit save, and everything is now shipshape once again. All right, so let's use some more of the information from our previous lessons. As you can see, our apple, our orange, and our pear, we only have 2 types of color. We've got green and we've got orange. So we don't really need the power of a string because right now there's only going to ever be 2 types. So let's strictly type this to just be orange or green. So once again, we're using that union type and specifically saying that we only expect that the color value in the fruit information interface will only ever be orange or green. So now let's try and say that we've got a red apple. So let's change this to red and hit save. And straight away, TypeScript reports an error. It says that red is not assignable to orange or green, but we do have a red apple. So let's extend this union to include red too. And now that has satisfied the compiler, our code is good to go. Now, before we go any further, in case you were wondering, if we wanted to get the information within an object, we can get it in exactly the same way that we did with JavaScript. And the way that we can do that, simply say, let's say, for example, I want to get the color of our pear. I can go pear information dot color, and I'll stick that in a variable called pear color and hit save. And that is perfectly valid. So yeah, no differences there. So one of the other cool things about using interfaces in TypeScript is that we also have the power to extend an interface. And what I mean by that is that we can effectively take all of the properties from one interface and add even more to it. All right, so let's use an example to explain how that could work. So for example, we want to add the pip count to our fruit information. So I'm going to declare that as a number and just hit save. We've got errors because our objects don't conform to that, but we'll worry about those in a second. And so our fruit information interface doesn't really work for orange, but it does work for apple and pear. So let's create a new interface that extends from our base interface, which is fruit information, and add pip count to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove pip count from our fruit information interface. And I'm going to call this next interface fruit information with pips. And we're going to extend the fruit information type. And just like before, open up a curly brace and hit save. Now our fruit information with pips interface is also going to have a new key, which is going to be pip count. And that is going to be a number. We're going to hit save. So now we've created our extended interface, let's apply this to our apple and our pear. So I'm just going to change this to fruit information with pips. I'm going to change this one to fruit information with pips, and I'm going to hit save. And we get an error. Property pip count is missing in type name color, but is required in the type fruit information with pips. And that is because we haven't added our pip count to our apple information and pear information. So let's add that just now. So I'm going to go pip count. I'm going to say that an apple has 10 pips. I don't know if that's correct, but it is for the sake of this example. And we're going to say that a pear has 15 pips. Again, I'm not sure on that one, but who knows. And I'm going to hit save. And straight away, that has now satisfied the TypeScript error. We can see that the apple information type and pear information type is correct because we're using the fruit information with pips, but our orange still remains as our base fruit information type. So our fruit information with pips interface that we just created abides by all of the same rules that our fruit information interface does. So we can demonstrate that by removing the name key in our apple information, hitting save, and we get the error property name is missing in the type, which is correct because we've extended from the fruit information type, which declares that a name must be a string. So I am just going to undo that and hit save, and TypeScript is satisfied once again. Okay, so let's round this up. We mentioned earlier on the orange, we still want them to have name and color on it, but our orange has seeds. So with that in mind, let's do exactly the same thing that we did earlier on. Let's extend our fruit information, and this time add a property called seed count. So let's go interface, fruit information with seeds, extends fruit information. And again, I'm gonna add seed count as a property on our interface. I'm going to change the type of our orange information to use the fruit information with seeds interface, hit save, and we get our error, which says property seed count is missing in the type name, color, but required in the type fruit information with seeds. And that is because we are missing our seed count property. So let's add that. And once again, I don't know how many seeds an orange has, but we're going to say 20, and we're going to hit save. And just like that, we now have ourselves a base interface, which is fruit information. We have an extended interface with fruit information with pips, and an extended interface with fruit information with seeds, which is using all of the same properties from our base interface, which is fruit information. We are good to go. So this has just been a very, very quick introduction into interfaces, just to give you the sort of core concepts of how they work and how we can extend them. We're going to go into more detail as we use them later on in the course, but for the time being, this should get you through a lot of the day-to-day situations that you'll find when using interfaces in TypeScript.